at the same time. All right, Boris got his Wi-Fi fixed. Ned is here. We got to change our background, Ned. We were doing a little 49er talk while we were waiting. So we'll go back to baseball. There we go.
You got it.
All right. And we may even have a Sharks one coming too. We had a request earlier when we said, Ned will be here. Someone said, do us a favor, give Ned a Sharks background. So somebody already asked a question. Wanted to know what you think of the new goalie you guys traded for.
I think Mike Greer has had an outstanding offseason.
Oh, there it is. There's the background. Look at that.
I think, I like that. Mr. Couture there, yeah. I think it's, a rebuild is tough. Nobody likes getting beat. Turned it into the number one pick, a really good player in Macklin, and Will Smith from a year ago, the fourth overall pick, plus a goaltender from the other day, and a lot of other additions. Tyler Toffoli, Wenberg. I don't want to leave anybody out. CC from a couple days ago. It's a different team. Are we cup ready? No, we're not cup ready. But are we going to be better? I don't think there's any doubt. I don't think any team has had as thorough an offseason as the Sharks. I don't say it because I work there. I just say it because I watch what goes on. And Mike Greer has done a tremendous job of taking a team that was successful for many, many years in a cap system. It's a hard cap, so there's really only one way around it, and that's with somebody that's going to miss a lot of time. You can take that number off the cap. But, we traded picks to try and win it, went all in, and didn't quite make it. But, you pay the price for that at some point in time.
Yeah.
Far different than baseball, but I think the Sharks are really in a good spot.
Yeah. You guys experienced that. You were with the Giants 97 through 04, I believe. You left in 05. Was it 05 season?
I left after 05. I started in
06.
I started in 95, I think was my first year.
Yeah, 95. So you went through a couple of rough years with the Giants.
Yep.
97, you guys are officially named GM, Brian, and you assistant. You win 8 straight years from 97 to 04. The Giants have 4 down years because it's cyclical. You can't stay on top all the time. But then, like any great GM, it was rebuilt.
Yep.
And it was rebuilt to the point where 09 they started winning, and then 3 World Series championships in 5 years, and another winning season in 16. And, to me, what I was upset with is, I'm speaking as a fan, not as a media person, but I guess I can speak as both. I was upset that the Giants went in a different direction because it's like it was rebuilt once. Why wouldn't you rebuild it twice?
Yeah, well,
that's my thinking. But
we all pay attention to it, but none of us really know what goes on behind closed doors, as they say.
Yeah. And so
smart people.
But you took over a Dodgers franchise that was kind of on the downward trend in 05, 06. And it took you not too long I think it was 08. Weren't you in the champion NLCS?
Yeah, 08, 09 in the NLCS, a team we inherited. I was in San Francisco for 2005. Sounds like a million years ago now.
Yeah.
And the team the Dodgers, I think, started off maybe 12-2, 12-3, and ended up winning 71 games and losing 91 games. You think of the Dodgers today,
wow,
them losing 91 games, you're talking about like 8 months play, 6 months one season and 2 months in the next one. But that's the team we inherited. I mean, went from 71 wins, the team that I started with, inherited, to 88 wins and tied San Diego for the division championship within a year. I mean, we went to the playoffs in 06. We went from 91 losses in 05. I came in at Thanksgiving time and won 88 the next year and went to the postseason.
What was the first move you made as a player transaction? You remember it?
Well, there was a flurry of moves. I signed Rafael Furcal as a free agent, Nomar Garciaparra, the great Billy Miller from Giant days, Kenny Lofton from my Giant days, and also traded for Andre Ethier, who was a double-A player for Oakland at the time. Those were, I think, 4 or 5 that all came really quick. We had no manager, we had no coaching staff when I took over, and it was halfway through November, and there were 29 managers who had been hired. There were 29 coaching staffs that have been hired. We didn't have a manager, we didn't have a coaching staff, so we had to get that done too. I think I was on 21 flights my first 18 days.
Wow.
As a GM, but hey,
Wow.
we figured it out soon. Within
Now,
months,
I know once you get you're fully staffed and everything, it's a conglomerate of effort. It's a team effort you're putting together. But when you first started, those first moves you mentioned, were those all pretty much on your own doing?
Andre Ethier had been seen by our scouts, our amateur scouts, who were really good, and an older scout named Al Lamakia.
Oh, yeah.
Al was probably in his early 80s at the time. And I remember I was talking to Billy Bean. He wanted Milton Bradley. And, I asked about, players in our winter meeting suite. I said, give me some names on Oakland. And, I said, what about Ethier? And Al Lamakia swung around in his chair like he was a whirling dervish, and just, oh, you got to get Ethier. And then our amateur scouts also, Ethier will be just like the rest of our young guys, like Russell Martin, Matty Kemp, James Loney. He'll fit right in that group. And he did. He ended up in the top 10 and
he was
category with the LA Dodgers. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the first trade. I'm not sure who was the first signing. I think Raffy might have been the first signing. And then Nomar and Billy Miller and Kenny Lofton came real quick after that. I think I signed Nomar and Kenny maybe on the same day. I was at a wedding in Pasadena for our traveling secretary. And I don't think I had any cell coverage in the banquet hall. And I went out to the payphone. And I think I got both those deals done in the lobby of the hotel on the payphone. But yeah, they changed our team immediately.
That's great. Bor, you got any questions? Are you frozen?
Am I good? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Ned, good to see you again.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, in season, when you're a GM, what's the ratio of your time and energy spent on the big league roster and then the minor league rosters and teams? Because I mean, your focus has to be, I would assume, on the major league roster, but some of your prospects and highly touted players are also coming through the minor league system. So how do you navigate your focus and attention between the two?
That's a great question, Bar. I think probably 75-25 most days, with your emphasis on the big league club.
Mm-hmm.
But there are days when it reverses, when it goes 75-25. I have a lot of respect for those who develop players.
Mm-hmm.
They're, coaches that have been around for a while. They don't make a lot of money. They're on buses constantly. The only team that really travels by air is your AAA team, and they're the ones on the 6 a.m. flight. So spring training was a big time for me to spend time with that group. It was probably 60-40 as far as the time. Some days 90-10 for the big league club as you got closer to the end of camp. But then when the season started, I probably would see 125 big league games of our own, and sometimes other teams near the deadline as I went to see somebody we had interest in. But when I didn't see the big league club, which I thought was healthy not to see them all the time, not for me to see them or them to see me, for 183 straight days and 162 straight games, I would go to the minor leagues. I'd spend a week, probably every 5 weeks, at AAA, AA, half and half. Then I go to both A-ball clubs. And our A-ball team, like the Giants, is in California and San Jose. Ours was in San Bernardino for a while, then Rancho Cucamonga. So I could do that by driving. And so, and the rookie league team, once they started up, needed to spend time with them. because you can't let people think that they're forgotten or that they don't matter. I lived about an hour and 15 minutes from Dodger Stadium, and LA traffic is historic. I would, every day that we were home, I would use the hour and 15, hour and a half to call scouts, to call player development people. The scouts never went longer than probably a week or 10 days without hearing from me. And you've got, 15, 20 major league scouts, pro scouts.
Mhm.
So it was important that I stayed in touch with them, and I cared about what they did. I cared about what was going on in their families. They're away from home for months on end. And so it was important to stay connected with everybody.
Ned, we had an old friend of yours on last night, Sean Estes,
Yes.
in the days of the Giants, 97,
Yep.
19-5,
Yep.
All-Star. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you have any aspirations of getting into coaching or into front office? He said, coaching might be fun, but it takes a lot of time. But he said, GM's a 365-day-a-year job.
Yeah.
I don't want that. He goes, not with my young kids.
It never ends.
Yeah.
You don't ever stop thinking about it. I
Yeah.
never stopped thinking about it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can
sometimes-
imagine just running my little tiny fantasy baseball team, and it's like nothing. I mean, that's nothing compared to what you guys got. I
Yeah.
mean,
you
but,
toss and turn in the middle of the night, you wake up and you're up the rest of the night.
I bet. I got to bring this up to you. I told Sean I'd hit you. He told us. I asked him, "What's it like to get traded?" And he's, because he was traded twice, first from the Giants to the Mets, and then he got traded from the Mets mid-season to Cincinnati. He said the first time it was really tough. He was really crushed. I said, I'll get on Ned. Why'd you trade him, Ned? No.
Well, same. No, I don't. His dear friend was Billy Miller.
Mm.
We had made a deal with the Cubs for Billy Miller on a Friday, and word got back to me that I think Sean and Billy Miller were going to the big game, the Cal Stanford game.
Oh, okay.
The next day, and I looked at saves. I says, Billy Miller can't be going to the Cal Stanford game as a Cub. So we held the deal off until Sunday. We had the deal made, but we refused to tell Billy and refused to announce it, and swore the Cubs to secrecy until we got to Sunday, so Billy could go to the big Bay Area college football game.
Oh yeah, the big game.
Yeah, and then I hired Billy as soon as I got to LA. I took him as a player, and then his knee blew out, and then made him a special assistant and helped.
I love those big games. I went to several. My brother played in 4 of them, so it was pretty fun. Yeah, he broke up. Cal.
Oh,
yeah, he played with the Minnesota Vikings as well for.
Oh goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But he broke up it was 1 year. It was 21-14, and Cal was leading, and Stanford had the ball on the 2-yard line with like 5 seconds left, and Turk Schonert was the quarterback for Stanford, and he had the guy right over the goal line, and my brother reached over and hit it, swatted it away, and place went crazy. Cal fans were all.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty fun, but yeah, he did pretty good. He played in the Hula Bowl, he played in the East West Shrine.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he did pretty well. But one of the things we had Sean on last night was pretty hilarious. I'm hoping you got some stories like this. We asked Sean, what was it like when you threw behind Roger Clemens in 2002, because the Piazza Clemens battle from 2000, and then it carried over into the World Series and everything. And he told the story. It was pretty hilarious, but he said, didn't hear anything about it. He thought, he knew he was pitching. He was getting ready. His mind was focused. He's just like, okay, I didn't hear anything. Nobody's talking about it in the clubhouse. Guys told me, just pitch your game, Sean, just pitch your game. So he's warming up, getting ready to warm up in the pen. And Bobby Valentine, they call him into his office, and it's Piazza and Valentine sitting there. And he says, we're going to give you the sign, look for the sign. And he said, So he got a little uptight, got a little nervous because it's like, okay, gets the sign and he throws it behind. He says, I'm going for his hip. I'm not going to aim for anybody's head. And Clemens said he knew it was coming. It was like, just get it over with. And so and Clemens told one of Sean's teammates, hey, look, I'm not going to come after Sean if he hits me or anything, just get it over with. And he throws at his hip, but he kind of scoots in and it goes behind him. And so, misses him. And then the sign comes off. And he said, Valentine, he looked over and Valentine was pretty ticked. And Sean was like, whatever, he's pissed that he missed him. But so he came up later, never got the sign to hit him again. But the real great thing was in the 5th inning, Sean hit a home run off Clemens. Oh. And so did Piazza in the game. And that's why Piazza hit him really well, Clemens. And that's why Clemens plunked him.
Yeah.
And so just hearing that story was really classic because, we all know this stuff goes on, but, you don't hear about it as frankly as we heard it last night. So you got any fun stories like that you could share?
Well, I was never in a position. I mean, the front office isn't in a position of telling somebody what to do. I've known of situations where, a guy gets hit or thrown at, maybe accidentally, or maybe you're going to be accidental going back the other way, and where the manager would just look over at the catcher and the pitcher and go take care of that. And they figured out a way to take care of it.
It's pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we got a hockey question. Go ahead, Bart.
We just talked about trading Estes and all this. Talking trading deadline. When you go into spring training and go into a season, you probably have an idea of how good your team is and where you expect to rank in the standings. Are you thinking, or do you have any players in mind before the season starts or at the beginning of the season that you're thinking of, I might want to trade for this guy, or I like thinking about the trade deadline in advance?
No doubt. You're always thinking about it. And sometimes trades take a year to actually happen. Sometimes you could spend a year or two doing it and it still doesn't happen. And some trades happen real quick. But you're always your mind is always on how do you make your team better, even if it's the 26th player on the roster, even if it's your last bullpen arm, whoever it is. It's not just to have better players, it's really to have competition as well. A team that doesn't have competition for playing time, for at-bats, for innings, in hockey for ice time, power play time, things like that, it's hard to win. But for whatever reason, without competition, it's hard to win. When players know, and not everybody's a star player, they're all really good to be playing at the big league level. They're all among the best in the world. But, some are borderline. And, you've got to keep them riveted and focused in on the task at hand. And it's tough to do that without competition. If players know that they're playing no matter what because there's nobody else, they better be all-star players. They better be really great players because only the great ones can play without the competition. And so that's a key thing. So you're always thinking about that, Bora.
We got another Sharks question here from you from Cliff Martinez, one of our members. He says, Ned, in your opinion, did David Quinn receive a fair opportunity in his role? Also, what should the fan base anticipate from first-year head coach Ryan Warsofsky?
Well, Ryan is he's a young coach, but he's been very successful at what he does. I've gotten to know him the last couple of years. He's going to be great. He's going to have somewhat of a learning curve at the NHL level, but you look at his career and you'll see that success and him walk hand in hand, and it's he's going to be outstanding. He's going to, by the time this season ends, he will have learned. He's already really good, but he's going to learn so much in his first NHL season as a decision maker. So I think it's he kind of fits our club. We've got the veterans. One of the other messages there, listed a lot of free agent signings and acquisitions. They're veterans, obviously, but really the core of our group are 18, 19 years old, 17 years old, 20 years old. So you have somebody at Ryan's development stage, really kind of hand in hand with the young players. And I like David Quinn a lot. And I just I spent a lot of time with him and the staff. That's part of my responsibility, and learned a lot from him. And we went through a couple of tough seasons. He's doing well. He's in Pittsburgh. He's part of Sullivan's staff there. A good man, a great hockey guy, and somebody that I really enjoyed the time with. As we all know, it's all part of the business. Things change for whatever reason. So I'll always wish him the best and always root for him unless his team is playing in San Jose or against Team Teal. But good people all the way around. And Ryan is going to be a tremendous coach. He's already at the top of his game as a young coach, and there's more to come.
Now we've got a question, another follow-up, not really it's more of a thank you, but Cliff says this. Thanks for answering and coming back on, Ned. I'll make sure Dan sends you a gift card to Sodini's in North Beach. I probably sent him $100 in super chats by now, so it's the least he can do. Cliff, buddy.
I'm right with you, Cliff. I'm right with you. I used to call Kruger when he was doing KMBR at night. He'd say, I need you on the air tonight. I said, well, I'm going to go see my buddy Mark Sodini over at the restaurant. I mean, San Francisco is a great restaurant city, right?
Right.
If I ate dinner in San Francisco 500 times during my Giant career, I ate at Sodini's probably 485 of them. So many times I get on the landline at the bar and I talk to Larry for a half hour or so, talk Giants and, have a little pasta when I was in the middle of it. But yeah, he's right. Cliff, you're right on. You could ask questions all night long. I'm not sure that Dan will ever produce that gift card, but you got the right spot.
Send in another 100, Cliff, and I'll
the right spot.
Send another 100 in, Cliff. I'll send him a gift card there. I don't know if you want to answer any would have, could have, should haves in baseball that relate to teams. So maybe you don't want to answer those. But this one was asked, but it's up to you. Would you keep a player? Maybe just any. Maybe not specific, but would you keep a player that was going to walk in free agency? If I guess it depends on if you think they can help you get to the playoffs or not, right?
Well, I think I've said it on your show earlier this summer, and I've said it probably a year ago and 2 years ago, all the time. I think the GM's responsible, or the president of baseball ops, which is the GM from the old days.
Right.
I think you always have to be honest with where your club is at and what the chances are that the team can make it to the playoffs. And every organization has got its own map and its own plan and its own need to either let us just get there. We may get boxed in the first week, but let us get there. We need to get there. Some teams haven't been over 500 for 15, 20 years. We need to get there for our fan base and for our confidence. Other teams aren't going to mortgage the future, so to speak, or mortgage the present just to get there, to get eliminated in a week. So I think you have to be honest with yourself on where your team is at. And obviously the Giants thought they had a chance to get their rotation back as they waited a lot of the season to get the full rotation back, thinking that was going to be able to carry them forward. And so, as you look at it, you got to make that call in real time. And it's easy to look back on something and say, well, they should have did this or they should have done that. But it's really, GMs don't have that. Well, if I only did this, if I only did that, we don't have that opportunity. It's in real time. Where is your team at? Where are your ticket sales at? Where is the fans' perspective on where you're at? Not that you do things that fans want you to do. As the great Tom Lasorda would say, if you start thinking like the fans and doing what the fans want, you're going to be sitting with them.
With them.
And
that's right.
So, but you got to understand where your team is at, and if you think you have to trade, some of your better players at the deadline because they're going to walk, well, then you do that. But if you think your team has got a chance,
But
you have to hang on, because I tell you what, if they trade Conforto and they trade Snell on July, the last days of July, you're telling the rest of the team you don't believe in them. You're telling the rest of the team, you know what? We're looking at another year. We're coming back in 2025. That's tough to do with 2 months to play.
right.
So,
Yeah, I was a little disappointed personally. I felt that they
Mhm.
should sell and go young because, I didn't see a realistic shot at the playoffs. And as you said, if they did make it, they're probably going to get bounced. The only hope they had was if Robbie Ray did pitch well and Snell and Webb, if they got into a short series, they could do damage.
I mean, that's a good.
And I
It's a
understand
good
that
1-2-3
part.
combo.
There's
Yeah, I
another
mean-
factor too, Danny. There's another thing that goes along with this, and it gets lost all the time. But all right, you're going to trade Conforto and you're going to trade Blake Snell. Do you have another team out there that is going to give you what you want for those players? You're telling your team you're basically done. We're going to play out the next 2 months, and you guys are going to have to, play as hard as you can, knowing that we just traded, one of our better hitters and maybe our second best pitcher, and on some days your best pitcher. But you better have the match for that, and that doesn't always happen because that team realizes too these guys are walking towards free agency. So how much you going to give up? Blake didn't pitch well early. Stein
Right.
signed late, didn't pitch well early, then was hurt for a while, then came back and was one of the best pitchers in the game. Who you getting for the last 2 months? You're getting the most recent Blake, you're getting the early Blake, you're getting the injured Blake. What are you getting? So how much are you going to give up for that? Because if you're telling your team the last 60 games we're not interested in, you better be getting a lot back.
Right.
And you got to have the match, and you got to have that team that not only has
None of us know what the offers were, so it's easy.
unfair. It's really an unfair thing to say that, well, they should have did this.
Right.
Well,
It really does. Yeah. You have to, as fans, as media, we don't know who the offers are. And so, it's hard to say, but
I mean, it's great to talk about, but it's not
right.
It's not the realistic approach to what happens.
There's another question from
exactly.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Ned, you just said that when a GM considers making that trade or trades a player away, calibers of Snell and Conforto, it can send a message to a team saying we're kind of giving up, we're playing for next year. Could the same be said by someone not adding anybody and not making any significant moves at the deadline to improve your team?
No doubt. But in the case of the team I think you're referring to, Danny just ran through a possible 3-person rotation. That's pretty, when healthy, is pretty stellar. And so, your acquisitions sometimes come from the injured list. They don't necessarily come from another team.
Right.
Because think of where the Giants are at too. How much do they want to invest in trading prospects? They're kind of in the middle. They've been in and around 500 for months. So they win as much as they lose, or they lose as much as they win. That's who they are right now. So who are you going to give up to be 5 games over?
Right.
I mean, so, but
and
it's guys to come back healthy.
Right. We've kind of talked about it a little bit here. If you do the math, they're 5.5 behind the Braves, but they're 6 in the loss column, and the Braves hold the tiebreaker. So it's really 7. The Braves have to lose 7 more games than the Giants, and there's 30 games left. So you do the math. It's almost impossible. The Giants have never won more than 4 in a row. They've got 29 games left. They basically have 67 wins, 67, right, Bora? Yeah. So
67 and 66, yeah.
The Braves are 72 and 60. if the Braves go 14 wins, just win 14 and 16 in their final 30, they finish 86 and 76. The Giants would have to win 21 games and lose 8 to finish one game. It's not likely. It's just,
No.
I mean, it's just, you look at them, and then you got the Mets ahead of them, and they're tied with the Cubs. So it's going to be tough. Here's a question that I may just answer for Ned, because he may not want to answer.
I got to send you $100 gift certificate to Cedini's.
Here it is. I'm going to answer it for Ned. How far are the Giants away from the Dodgers? Light years away. They're not going to. They're just. Hey, it's two different organizations going two different directions. I don't know if you have anything to add to that or want to touch it, Ned, but
Dodgers are really good. Dodgers ain't going to be bad for a long time. And you also got, there's only, you're asking the Giants from the Dodgers. Where would you put the Giants, Danny, to Arizona? Where would you put
they're same. I mean,
San Diego?
Both those clubs are, what's amazing to me, Ned, is the Padres sold basically their entire farm system over the last few years. And Washington got, some great players. They got C.J. Abrams. They got this kid, James Wood, who's the number 2 ranked prospect, and he's been playing great up with the big club.
Yep.
They also got Robert Hassel III.
Mackenzie Gore.
Yep.
I mean, and then the Padres did it again last year and did it again this year, and they still have – now they have the number 1 ranked prospect in baseball, the kid Salas. Or not the number 1, but he's top 5, I think. And they're winning, and they're doing it without Tatis and Soto. And, AJ Preller has been going for it. I don't know how they're doing it exactly, but they seem to be putting things together. And the Diamondbacks, to me, the Diamondbacks are the team that I think can stay on the Dodgers' tail for a few years. They're an up-and-coming team, and they've been built the right way. Mike Hazen has done a fantastic job.
Yep.
And, I have all the respect in the world for Mike Hazen, what he personally went through, losing his wife, raising young kids by himself, stepping away from the game for a while, and then coming back and then making the World Series. And then they're a threat again this year.
Yes.
I have nothing but respect for that organization.
So here's 2 things you got to think about. I shouldn't say you got to think about. You don't have to think about anything. The 2 of the barometers, or at least 2, that Sabes and I would always talk about. First of all, you got to be over 500, and you got to be 5 over, 10 over, 15 over, 20 over, and inside your division, you've got to beat everybody more than they beat you. So that's where you start. You start with getting over 500, not by a game, but by 5, by 10, by building that up, and by beating the teams in your division far more than they beat you. I don't know what San Francisco's record in the NL West is.
It's not good. They beat up on Colorado. They get whooped by LA. They haven't played a lot. They still have 6 games each with Arizona and San Diego. So that's going to, they got 12 remaining between the 2. So that, I think, and I mentioned tonight on our earlier, right now, these teams are all playing like it's their playoff. They're positioning themselves. So the playoffs have started for them. The Mets and the Braves are fighting for the last spot, and the Giants, are a ways back. It's going to be so hard to catch them because these 2 are going to be, it's going to be like the 93 Atlanta, San Francisco, when they both were 103 wins on the final day of the season. But that last month was like crazy. It was like, we got to win. We got to win, because it was a 2-team race, and the Mets and Braves, it's a 2-team race. And so they're not playing like each game like, oh, we can afford to lose a game. And so the Giants, basically what Bor and I talked about tonight is don't even look at the scoreboard. You guys got to win. You got to pull off 15 of 18 or something. Don't even look at the scoreboard. You have to focus on just winning and hoping, you know, if they,
and you got to, you use your time. You give your prospects some time to see how they compete in different situations. You learn every day about your players. So you use the last month or so to really learn about your team and hope you put a streak together.
Right.
They put all their cards really in the starting rotation.
Yeah.
That was it. And it's not a bad place to put it because that can carry you. If you can pick the ball up and you can pitch, you can win a lot of games. So that was the gamble. That was the approach, without talking to them about it. It's, they don't do what they did without thinking that their starting rotation, if healthy, was going to be a huge strength against other teams.
Right.
Ned, you've dealt with player negotiations and contracts and all that. When you're valuing a player, what metrics are you looking at? Because I'm going to take Matt Chapman, for example. He's an inconsistent hitter, but his defense is elite. His base running's elite. He plays every day, and his WAR is high. He has a high WAR. But if you look at his OPS, it's around 760, 770. So, and his average is right around 240. When you're looking to extend a player or sign a player or trade for a player, what metrics and what stats are you looking at to be able to evaluate that player?
Well, you can look at stats all day long. I mean, if you watch the player play, you know how good the player is. You know how much you trust a player in situations. You know what the player is capable of doing. Whether it's Chapman or somebody else. I mean, you've seen at this stage, if they've only been with you since the beginning of the year, you've seen them for 130 games or most of them. And, if you've been paying attention, you've seen them before they got here. So, the player and the stats can give you some indicator, but it's also seeing how people perform in big situations. How do they do that? How do they perform when you're trying to win a title, when you're trying to win a division? That's the key thing for me. Another thing you got to think about is, okay, what's your other option? Okay. So you let somebody walk. Okay. Who's playing there next year? Do you have somebody? Do you have somebody that's going to be within a year of the equal or surpass the player? People are always in a hurry to have people leave or to trade people or to fire, managers or coaches. Whatever you make that move, you better have somebody better in the wings. You can't just replace somebody who you don't like because you're not a complete player with somebody who's not even that player. I mean, that's a good way to get fired yourself. So, you got to look at the options too of what you have. I think Chapman would be a really good player if he was not counted on for his offense.
If he had some surrounding
defenders ahead of him and behind him, and so whatever he hit, but the defense was elite. The defense is going to save your runs. The defense is going to get your pitching staff out of innings, and as you say, runs the bases really well. That's great, but he can't be your second or third best hitter with the numbers that you quoted. If he's your sixth best hitter, or even better, your seventh best hitter, now you really got a value there. You got huge value there. So it depends on the composition of your club too. If you take a player and your expectation, it's like getting to the deadline and being honest with yourself on where your team is at. It's the same thing. You can't expect the player to do more than they're capable of doing. It's impossible. Are they going to do it? Yeah, once in a while they're going to do that, but they are who they are to a large degree. So evaluate them appropriately, understand their strengths and weaknesses, understand what they contribute to your club, understand the rest of the makeup of your club, the rest of your lineup. What do they do?
My thing with Matt Chapman has been, I think he's an excellent ball player. I think the problem with the Giants having Matt Chapman is they don't have any stars around him. If he's on the Dodgers, my goodness, he's probably, with Muncy out, he could have been the difference at third base. You'd find a spot somewhere else for Muncy. You probably could have made him at second base and moved Betts, back to the outfield.
There you go. That's a perfect example. If you're not looking at him to provide offense,
Right.
you're looking at him to really pick it up at third base, play a lot, play almost every day, run the bases well, all those things. It's a perfect situation. You have a huge, valuable player. If he's hitting in the middle,
he'd be perfect. Yankees, Phillies, Baltimore, Dodgers.
He's got great value.
Oh, he does. He does. He just doesn't have. I've been kind of hard on him, and I don't mean to personally, because I like him. I just don't like him on the Giants club because I didn't think he would make the difference of making them a playoff team. I thought they should have went younger and spent money on more pitching and let their draft picks that they're so high on play and see what you got. Now you're talking about re-signing him. We don't even know if Casey Schmidt can play. They said Casey Schmidt was the next Matt Chapman defensively, but we don't know if his offense can make it because the Giants haven't given him a fair shot. And my thing is let him play. And if he's, they should be playing him somewhere else at second base. Let his get the at-bats and no, then you can make a judgment after he has 350 at-bats. You say, maybe he's not the guy we think he is. Or, yeah, he's a guy we're going to need. We can put him at third and we can maybe, instead of spending that money on Chapman, we can spend it elsewhere. Maybe we can pay it to Juan Soto, for example. I think I'm fine with Chapman being on this team, but go get Juan Soto and go make a trade for Guerrero. Now you're talking about a solid baseball team, but that's me. I don't think they're going to do it. And personally, I don't think Soto probably would come anyway. So it's not up to just the Giants. Soto's got the final decision. So you can't say they should have done this when the player says, I didn't want to go there. It's like, but we've got something here, Ned. I think we got it ready, queued up. My producer in the background. We got a little clip from last night from Sean Estes. I want you to see this clip as Ryan gets it.
Even if I come back and watch a 49er game, it's not going to be, you just feel that bond with other sports teams in your city, and it just wasn't going to have that anymore. One and two, just it was hard. It was a really, really tough time for me. So that was something that I didn't want, right? So I just kind of, there's nothing you can do about it at that point. It's just, so you got to move on. And I got ready to go play in New York, and it was a pretty good team on paper that year, although everybody pretty much underperformed to a man, and we had a terrible season. And so when I got traded during that season, we were in the midst of a 13-game losing streak in New York. And if you ever been in New York during a losing streak, how about a 3-game losing streak's no fun to come to the ballpark. Can you imagine 13? I mean, the teams getting booed when they were getting announced.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So he got traded to the Reds, and it was actually a good thing. But we were curious. You got to deal with this. What's it like for you, Ned, when you got to tell a player he's been traded, and the family, the wife, the kids? I mean, that's got to be really hard.
Well, it is. And it's hard releasing players, and it's hard having players, that their careers are over after having stellar careers. It's all hard. I think you have to try and establish a relationship before you get to the tough decisions, so that the player kind of knows it's coming. He kind of knows where your heart is at. He kind of knows where your thought process is. So it's never easy. It's always, I guess, a surprise to some extent, but it can also be set up in such a way that, they've given it some thought before it actually occurs. So, but yeah, none of that stuff is easy, but losing is worse.
Does that fall on the GM or president of baseball ops to tell a player that he's
Oh
been
yeah.
traded or cut, or is it the manager?
No, I always,
Okay.
I always told players, even if I wasn't with the big league club, I mean, there was a trade at the deadline. I was actually, the team was in, it was a Giants trade. It was Ellis Burks and the late Darrell Hamilton.
Mm.
And I think I was with the club, but I wasn't at the ballpark because we were trying to get deals done. And neither Sabes nor I were at I guess was Veterans Stadium at that time. And I called and I had the manager's phone number at his desk, and I called Dusty and I said, hey, bring me, I need Darrell. I need to talk to Darrell. And here's what we've done. And Dusty went and got Darrell, and I'm assuming he didn't tell him until Darrell got on the phone. I explained to him what we had done, and he wasn't happy about it, but he knew that. I think he knew we were getting a pretty good player back in Ellis Burks too.
Right. Oh boy, was that a great acquisition?
Yeah. So,
You know,
I say when this stuff happens, well, it's a business. You got to understand the business part of the sport and this and that. Well, if it wasn't a business, they wouldn't be getting paid 10, 15, 20, 30 million either.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, I just use the word GM because to me it's synonymous with Pobo. Okay. But as a GM, you have this pressure, as you mentioned. It's 365. You wake up, as you said, in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep because you're thinking of this. I want to take you to a situation. I'm sure you had similar situations, maybe different different, but the Dodgers this year, they have Freddie Freeman, and he has guys, everybody knows these are ball players, but they're human beings, and they have, that's their first priority. If you ask any player, is a family.
Absolutely.
And Freddie, I'm getting emotional thinking about it because, just to go through that, if you had kids, what we're talking about. But, to be having your little boy in a possible life-threatening situation, and he has to leave the club and, comes back. But as a GM, what is your thought process? Just, hey, Freddie, just take us whatever you need. If it's the whole season, just do what you got to do. Or how do you handle that?
Well, that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you also bring together the best medical people you can find to help.
Mm.
I mean, we can never take the human element out of this. We talk about trading players like they're baseball cards. I mean, they're not baseball cards. They're human beings.
Right.
And when you have the situation that the Freeman family has had and still has to some extent, although he's getting better and he's getting stronger, which is a great sign. You can't. There's not even a thought process to that. You just do what is humanly right, and you try to help. You don't just say, okay, we'll see you whenever you get back. No, you try and also the players have access to some of the best medical care in the world, but you continue to search for that and do the best you can to help. It's not even a thought. It's not even part of your decision making. It's unanimous.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, I have some people that are Braves fans, and they know Freddie is Brave. He's a guy that hates to miss time. Just absolutely. Guys that go on the IL, when he was in Atlanta, he'd give him a hard time if he said, "What are you going on the IL for? If you're not going to re-injure yourself, you need to be playing." This guy plays. I think he played 161 or 162 even last year. The guy does not miss, and he came back relatively quick for the situation. My hat's off and deepest respect for a man like that. I mean, as I've gotten older, Ned, I tend to, people get on me in this chat because they think I'm a Dodger sympathizer now because I just admire the team. I respect what they're doing. I mean, heck, I'm a Giants fan, but you want me to pull for the Giants? Give me something to root for, please. And so I watch the Dodgers, and it's like they're exciting to watch. I mean, I like watching exciting baseball. And so, I see what they're doing, and it's hard not to have respect for an organization. So what I'm saying is, as I've gotten older, I root more for I don't go against the uniform so much. I root for the player. Like, I love Mookie Betts. I think Mookie is a first-class guy. I've watched him interact with the fans. Freddie Freeman, Clayton Kershaw, Walker Buehler. I mean, the list goes on. If you get to know the players, you stop hating on, maybe you dislike the team. I get it. It's a team, and you hate the Dodgers, but you can't hate the people. I don't get it when people just dislike somebody as a, maybe you dislike him as a player. Yeah, he's on the other team, but I don't go for it.
You gotta
when people
respect them.
Yeah, you can respect him, and you certainly don't want to see him get injured. I mean, that's bogus. Wishing a guy gets hurt just because he's a Dodger Dan. See, here they come. Here they come, Ned. All right, Ned's going to be proud of me. I'm going to show him something. I'm going to show Ned my fantasy team real quick here. He's going to love my name. You're going to love this, Ned. I got criticized for calling Dodger Dan so much. I named my fantasy team. There it is. Dodger Dan Domination with a Dodger hat. How's that, Ned?
What place are you in?
I'm in first.
Oh, well. You picked the right name.
Yeah. See, I told you Ned would like that. So I did it
Ned,
as a joke.
Ned, you're a professor at
gentlemen.
Ned, you're
What's
a
that?
professor at Pepperdine, right?
Yes.
How did you
right now, actually?
how did you get into that job? And I mean, what do you teach? What is it like?
I teach 4 different classes. I teach 2 at a time. I teach a sports and the media class on a Wednesday morning. Tonight, I teach a class on organizational sports culture. Why do some sports organizations, Division I teams, how do they sustain success? Players change, and the team keeps competing and keeps winning. Not always a championship, but they always have a chance. How does that happen? How do some teams never win? How does that happen? So that's the class I teach in the fall on Tuesday nights. On Tuesday nights in the spring, I teach a class called the General Manager. Have a ton of negotiation. We learn how to negotiate trades, learn how to do salary arbitration. We learn how to do free agent signings. Some students are GMs, some students are agents. And then every other year, I go to London for a month, and I teach the globalization of sport. I just went the month of July over to London, and I teach how does European football / soccer, how does it globalize? Your great teams in England, your Manchester Cities, Uniteds, Liverpools, Chelseas, Arsenals, on and on, Tottenham. 98% of their fan base will never come to England. So how do you grow a sport like that? How did the NBA become a global sport? How has hockey become a global sport? I'm an older guy, and I can remember when there were 6 teams in the NHL. Every player was Canadian except for one, Tommy Williams. Tommy Williams was born at the top of Minnesota, almost in Manitoba. Now you look at it, and teams are from all over the globe almost. So how does this happen? So I teach that in the summer, every other summer.
Wow, that's
I'm at
great.
Pepperdine right now. I taught tonight, and I stay up here on Tuesday nights because I have a morning class. So
I love Pepperdine. I toured Pepperdine when I was a high school student, so I wanted to go there.
There you go.
Well, you mentioned sports agents. You said you're teaching some sports. You have some guys that become sports agents. from your class?
Well, it's part of it. Yeah. I mean, the agent business is a tough business. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not Jerry Maguire, it's not,
Yeah, we got a young guy.
I started representing players and I started making 10 million a year. I mean, it's a long, long haul.
Yeah. We have a young guy that's in fact, he's back there doing some stuff in the studio with us. He's in I think he's a paralegal right now, but he's interested in maybe going to college to learn how to be, get his law degree and become a sports agent. That would be a lot of guys started that become, Bob Myers of the Golden State Warriors was a sports agent, became NBA's best GM for a while.
Yes. Historically good.
Yeah. And a great guy too.
Yes.
Really, I think that's what makes a difference between some of the best GMs out there is they not only know they know the game, they know how to make trades, but they know how to treat people. They know how to interact with people. They know how to really being a great GM is you got to understand human relationships. You got to know how to, I'm sure. I mean, to me, it seems like a lot of, sales too. I mean, you got to have that ability to, and that's where, and I don't expect you to comment on this. I'll just say this, my thing. I think Farhan's a very smart man. I think he's valuable to an organization as a baseball person. I think he was very valuable to the Oakland A's and what he did in the analytics department. I just think it's not his gift to deal with people as much. And that's part of the job. And I think if the Giants were smart, I think they put him in the background. And I think he could have a much better effect with the Giants helping that way. But, that's me. That's my personal opinion. And
your observations from a distance, and all due respect to you, Danny,
right.
You're not in meetings. You're
right.
It's from a distance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I was with him in LA for a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I have, nothing against him personally. I just want to see the Giants go in a different direction. I was looking at the numbers the other night. They came in 58. They didn't have a losing season until 72. And then they had the disastrous 70s and they didn't win again until 87. So they had a couple of winning seasons, but not much in 16 years. And then 89 was good. And then 93. And then, the rest, you and Brian came on in 95, 96, and then 97. And since then, it's still the winningest franchise in the history of the major leagues, most wins. So I just want to see the Giants get back to winning ways. And if Farhan is able to do that, I'm all for it. I'll support him. But I'm just looking at numbers. If they don't win this year, 16% of the time they would have a winning season if they have a losing season this year, where Brian and you, for a while you were there, but mostly Brian carried on, 75% winning record, winning seasons. Didn't make the playoffs because they didn't have 1,800 teams making it back then. But, 75%, 7.5 out of every 10 years, you got a winning record. That's something San Francisco should be doing. And LA has it. LA hasn't had a losing season since what? 2000? Has it been like
maybe
2010? 6,
I
7,
had one season under 500 there. We were 80 and 82. We were going through bankruptcy and all kinds of stuff. My last 25 years we were over 500 23 times.
Wow.
Between the Giants and the Dodgers. I had two teams under 500.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Last question before we let you go, Ned. We're going to end this up. Somebody asked in the chat, what do you think of the Orioles general manager? I think it's Mike Elias.
Yeah.
Wasn't he the architect of Houston's first championship?
He was an assistant there.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's done a tremendous job. I talked to the Angelos brothers before they hired Mike, and I saw their vision, and I didn't know that it was something I wanted to get involved in, so to speak. And I think he's really done a great job. They compete in a very rich division.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
not the rich. They don't spend 150, 200, 300 million. They've developed their players. They've been patient. They lost 100 games, I think maybe 3 straight years. And they've reaped the benefit of that. They've reaped the harvest of defeat. And they've done great. And I think they're going to be really good for a long time. I think Mike has done one of the best jobs of anybody in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the what the Orioles spend. I got the numbers right here. Baltimore spends 101 million on their 26 man or their 40 man. The CB tax is only 133 million. Compare that to the Giants, and they're at 250. 100. What was that? 130? 120 million difference. And look at the difference of the clubs. Wow. That's some pretty good player development. Yeah, we had the director of player development on the Orioles a couple months ago. He was my best friend's son is the director of the Orioles. Yeah, player development.
Well, they have done great work.
Yeah,
they have done great work.
Well, Ned, we really appreciate you being here tonight, man. It's always a treat to have you. I'll one of these days I will get you that gift certificate up there to San Francisco.
Yeah, don't wait too long, Danny. I mean, come on now. You know, if you paid me $1 a show, I'd already have it.
There we go. I need more super chats, guys. I don't make enough to support everybody. I got all these young kids helping, and I gotta help Ned out, man. We get Ned on here more. He does it as a labor of love, but I'd like to help him out because he look, Ned's a busy man. He's running all over the country and working with the Sharks, teaching at Pepperdine, living in 2 different states at times, I think, right, Ned? A couple moving all over. Yeah. So, man, it's always great to have you on, Ned. Everybody requests you and says they love having you on. So we really appreciate that. And guys, we will be back tomorrow night at 8:00 for the post game, and Marty Lurie will join us.
Good man, Marty Lurie.
Yeah. Marty Lurie will join us. And then don't forget, Thursday night, we got Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron from the Chicago Bears, 85 Super Bowl champion.
Another good man. I've met Ron a few times. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, Ronnie will be on with us Thursday night, and we'll talk some Cal days. We'll talk his days with the Bears, coaching a Super Bowl with Carolina, and then Washington. Now he's working for the NFL Network. So
good for him.
Yeah. So, guys, thanks again. Join us tomorrow night. Ned, thanks again
Ned.
for being with us.
Good night, guys.
All right, you too. All right, everybody. Take care.